Hello guys, I'm back. My name is Hassan from Chronos Studios, and today I'll be showing you a tutorial on how on the advantages of using XRef in 3ds Max, because it's going to save you a lot of time, a lot of well, I'll call it maneuvering time and file and hardware resources. So it's going to save you a lot of, it's going to save you two things: time and hardware resources. So there's this project we're currently working on, and it's quite a big project, and there are a lot of buildings on the site. It's a low-cost housing project. Okay, and you can see now the peculiar thing about this project is that the buildings are already on ground, and the terrain for the building is so treacherous. It's hard, and then the client expects us to come up with almost similar results to what we have here. So the first thing about this site is that if you look at it, it's quite undulating and it's very big. It's a large scene with a lot of vegetation around it. It's it's somewhere quite in a remote place, and we have to replicate this. So the first thing we did was okay, I'm gonna show you some of the tests. These are all works in progress. I'm gonna show you we're able to come up with. You can see the terrain, the terrain modeled now. You can see the foliage used, but we used the carbon scatter. Okay, these are some other parts of the project. You can see how the terrain gently undulates, and we had to work with the terrain data from the surveyors. So I'm going to show you how we were able to handle this this kind of big scenes without crashing our computers. And really the trick really is in using XRefs, because if you look at this scene now, we have quite a whole lot of things in it. I'll show you two basic ones. We have all the buildings, we have the roads, we have the foliage, I mean the plants, we have the cars and the street lighting, and then what else do we have? Now we have the dense trees. Okay, so you don't want to have to work in a single max file when you're doing this. So I'm going to show you how we were able to conquer that. The first thing we did was we had to populate the buildings, right? We had to populate the buildings in the scene, and okay, let me do this so that you can see it well. And then the trick was that having these buildings with multiple steps, so that you can sink them into the ground, so that when the terrain comes, you can sink them individually into the grounds before you have this one or two steps up on the ground. And okay, if you look at this is actually an XRef object. Let me just be sure. References, XRef objects. Okay, yeah. If you look at these are XRef objects in this scene, and this big scene actually contains all the buildings, and each building is a max file. Now if you look at the total number of polygons and faces that we have in this project, you can see it's here. It's quite huge. And now these are all the buildings in the entire scene, and that's that's after we're displaying them as boxes. Let me just check this so we can have a good look at this. So these are all the buildings. You can see how we were able to populate this on undulating land. It was quite a difficult task, but yeah, we actually learned a whole lot while working on this project. So now that we use XRef objects, now there are two types of XRefs: XRef scene and XRef objects. Funny enough, this should be XRef objects. References, XRef objects. So what we did is that for XRef objects, you import each object of your scene with the XRef, create XRef record from file. So you tell it to navigate to which object you want to XRef. So when you tell it to do that, you just bring it in and then you place it where you want to place it. The advantage is that when you modify the main file, it could be the roof materials, it could be the roof materials you're trying to modify. When you modify the original file, you don't have to modify your scene in here. All you have to do is just update it, and just update your XRef records, and everything is back. Yeah, we have the update tool here, so when you click update, the original file is propagated here and you're good to go. So you don't have to, so even if the client makes changes and says, no, I want this building to be red, all you have to do is go to the original file, right, which is this, open it in the new max file, change the colors, and then you come here to update it so that you don't have to repopulate your entire scene again. Now this is the magic part. After having the entire scene populated this way, you really want to start populating other objects without having to touch these buildings again. So you have to save this entire file as a record, and then have a scene where you have all other things, including the roads, including the vegetation, including your cameras and stuff, and then you can use reference XRef scene. Now when you XRef your scene, you can't move your object about. It just sits in the scene. It just sits in the scene. And if you look at this, we have all buildings on layouts XRef, which are all the buildings on the site. So really, you can either enable it or turn it off, or show visible, or make it display as box, so that you can save up a lot of RAM and a lot of time orbiting into your scene. Now if you look at here, you can see that even though we have all our buildings in this scene now, our total police is very, very small. In fact, really what it's considering as poly here is probably what we have on the site, which is the terrain. That's about the only thing is referring to, because if you look at the original file which you had, it had 2.5 million polys, and here it's almost negligible. So it's going to help you to orbit your scenes faster, and you can do a lot of things without having to worry about RAM usage, or maybe a freezing computer or something. Okay, now I'm going to hide those buildings. Should in case I don't need the buildings anymore at this moment, I can just disable it, right? So I'm left with only my site. And okay, one more thing to disable. Let me just disable this. So yeah, that's what I have, and here is my site, and now I can unfreeze all and work on my terrain. I can unfreeze all and work on my terrain, while all my buildings are still very hidden. So it saves me a lot of orbiting time, and then I don't have to worry about how much of my file is used. And then another thing it saves you is, because you have it, you have other buildings, the buildings in your file saved somewhere, you can't really even worry about max file crashing, because your files are going to be saved somewhere, and then all you have to do is XRef them back again. So basically that's how we've been able to achieve these test renders, and we're still working on this project, and we already had tests animations for the presentation. So really, if you're using XRef, it's going to save you a whole lot, and well, I hope someday you really come across probably huge scenes like this, and you need to handle very complicated objects or scene population. So good luck in your scenes. I'll see you next time. Thank you. This is Hassan. Bye.